Hello everyone. I want to provide some context and corrections pertaining to some of our most recent videos. Over the last week and a half, the videos we've released have been inundated with comments, many of them very good, pointing out some minor improvements that we could have made in some of the arguments. And while I would like you to go and see the comments themselves, I thought it would be useful to sort of accumulate them together so that the very important points that those comments are made aren't lost on the viewership of this channel in general, because I understand that as a viewer, you're not likely to trawl through hundreds and hundreds of comments. So what I'd like to start with is the very first most common comment that I got on the video about the Latin pronouns mecum, tecum, and how they've continued in the Romance languages, or not continued in some case. Many of you pointed out that actually, if I had just done something as simple as paid attention to the libretto of Don Giovanni by Mozart, I would have clearly seen that there's actually quite a lot of attestation in the 18th century, at least as late as the 18th century, for meco and teco in Italian. So that's an important point to consider. Related to that very same video, I've received a few comments pointing out that actually my classification was incorrect. I called mecum, tecum, secum, etc. those words I termed adverbs because, of course, they somewhat condition the principal action of the sentence. But many of you pointed out that they're actually pronouns. Why I did that, I'm not entirely certain, but I was relying more on function. I'm in fact pretty interested in this. If there's a grammarian out there, a linguist who can perhaps more clearly explain to me this, I would like to understand, why is it that these are actually pronouns and not adverbs, given that they do somewhat condition the principal verb of the sentence? Of course, functionally they are pronouns, but it seems to me functionally they're adverbs as well. What's the relevant distinction there that causes us to grammatically classify them as pronouns and not adverbs? I'm very interested in that because it seems to me a pretty subtle difference between the two in this particular case. And then moving on to some of the important corrections you guys have pointed out on my video on prosthesis. The first was that the examples I used for Italian instances of prosthesis weren't entirely adequate. Particularly, istesso, testified in early modern Italian writings, actually isn't an example of prosthesis because the original term was istum ipsum. In fact, all that had happened in those instances was that E was still preserved and then was subsequently lost as it became the modern Italian stesso. The second example, which is actually pretty interesting, was the famous alloro. It actually turns out that alloro is not an example of prosthesis. It's in fact an example of rebracketing. It comes from the Latin expression illam laurum. I wanted to correct that because I don't want this channel to be a source of spreading misinformation about linguistics or about anything else for that matter. So I'm very grateful for all the comments that pointed out the minor corrections that needed to be made to those videos. And I want to finish off with one final note. Firstly, I'm extremely grateful for the attention that those videos received. Thank you sincerely to everyone who watched them. I've been enjoying responding to your comments and reading them, and I promise that I'll try get to every single one of them that I can possibly answer. The algorithm sometimes filters a few out, so if I haven't answered you by the time within a few weeks or in a month or so, then it's probably because I just wasn't able to see your comment in the first place. But I nonetheless appreciate the attention and the focus that a lot of you have given to what I've said in those videos. The second thing is I really want to say thank you to a YouTuber I have admired for a long time. You see, I had the enormous privilege of having Native Lang himself comment on one of our videos, and Native Lang was one of the first YouTube channels I watched when I started getting interested in languages. And if any of you, by any chance, and it's highly unlikely at this point that you wouldn't have heard of Native Lang, because he really is at the top of the YouTube language game. He's there amongst the 5 or 6 channels I think are just genuinely the best in this particular corner of YouTube. Go ahead, follow his channel, and watch his videos. They are very well researched, they're extremely well produced, and I deeply appreciate a lot of what he's done, and I'm honored actually that he commented on one of our videos. So Native Lang, if you are by any chance watching this, thank you very much. It's a sign that what we're doing here is something of value and of interest to many people. So thank you everyone for watching this, and thank you for your comments once again. I hope to see you in the next video. Ciao.